I guess I wanted to believe we were still okay. Our 5th anniversary was coming up, and despite everything, the distance, the weird silences, the strange little changes in her routine, I clung to the idea that maybe, deep down, we were still the same couple who used to laugh through late-night diner runs and argue over whether to watch sci-fi or rom-coms on Friday nights. Kelsey had told me she'd be out of town for a couple of days. She was attending a personal growth seminar in Bakersfield, a city about 2 hours from where we lived. According to her, it was the kind of event where phones were discouraged, Wi-Fi was spotty, and attendees were encouraged to disconnect completely. It sounded vague and idealistic, very Kelsey lately. She'd been leaning hard into wellness retreats, minimalist podcasts, and influencers who spoke in gentle tones about finding your center. Still, I didn't question her. At least, not to her face. But something about this trip bothered me. Maybe it was the way she mentioned it in passing, like it wasn't a big deal. Or how she packed quickly with a precision I'd never seen from her before. She's usually the kind to pack twice, once to see what she's missing and again to feel prepared. Not this time. She was done in 15 minutes. Don't text, she told me that morning, leaning in to kiss my cheek. They ask us to be totally unplugged. I'll call you as soon as I get back. She smiled like it was nothing. Like she wasn't leaving a husband who had already been feeling the walls close in. That was Thursday morning. By Friday evening, I was sitting alone on the couch, staring at the record I bought her. A vintage first pressing of Blue by Joni Mitchell, her favorite. I'd spent weeks tracking it down through collectors online, and when I found it, I was so sure it'd make her light up like she used to. But the longer I stared at that sleeve, the less sure I became. Something didn't sit right. I don't know what it was, just a gut thing. But it crawled under my skin and wouldn't let go. That's when I did something uncharacteristic of me. I got in the car and started driving to Bakersfield. I wasn't even sure what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't sit there pretending everything was fine. Not again. I needed to see her. Maybe I wanted to catch her in a lie, or maybe I just wanted her to prove me wrong. 2 hours later, I pulled into the parking lot of a downtown hotel. Not some quaint retreat in the mountains like I'd pictured. No yoga mats out front. No calming waterfall. Just a big, glass-front building with sleek modern architecture and a valet who looked at me like I didn't belong. I walked in, holding the vinyl record under my arm and a little box in my pocket. The box held a silver bracelet I'd ordered months earlier, engraved with coordinates from the beach where we first said, "I love you." I wanted to give it to her at dinner next week. Somewhere nice. Our spot. "Can I help you, sir?" the concierge asked, too chipper for my mood. "Yes," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm looking for the room where the Holman Personal Growth Seminar is being held." He blinked. "Oh, that group? They checked out earlier today. The seminar ended around noon." I paused. "Checked out?" "Yes, sir." I swallowed hard. "Is there anyone from the group still staying here?" He tapped something into his computer, then nodded. "One guest. A Mr. Daniel Forsman. He extended his stay." Of course he did. Daniel was Kelsey's boss. A guy I'd met twice. First at her holiday work party where he barely shook my hand before cornering Kelsey to talk strategy. The second time was when he called the house late one evening looking for her. I didn't like him then, and I definitely didn't like the way she spoke about him, like he was some misunderstood genius. "Daniel's going through a lot," she'd say. "He's just intense." I asked the concierge for his room number. He gave it without hesitation, like this was the most normal request in the world. "Room 214. I stood in front of the door for longer than I cared to admit. My heart was pounding, my palms slick. Everything in me screamed to turn back, to go downstairs, pretend I'd never come. But I couldn't. I had come too far to chicken out now. The door wasn't shut all the way. It hung slightly ajar, just enough to let sound and light spill into the hallway. I stepped closer. Inside, I heard low music, jazz, maybe? Something slow, smoky. There was the unmistakable clink of glass and a lazy hum of a voice I recognized immediately. "Daniel." I pushed the door open just enough to see inside. There he was, lounging on a velvet couch like he owned the world. He was barefoot, his shirt half unbuttoned, a glass of bourbon in his hand. He looked like he was midway through a very relaxed evening. And then Kelsey walked out of the bathroom. She was wearing a loose shirt, definitely not hers. It hung off one shoulder like an afterthought. Her hair was wet, tied up in a messy bun. She wasn't expecting anyone. When her eyes met mine, she didn't gasp or panic. She smiled. Just a little. "Jason," she said. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was warm. Calm. Like I was just a guest dropping in at the wrong time. "I thought I'd surprise you," I said, holding up the vinyl. "Happy anniversary." For a second, something flickered across her face. Guilt? Shock? Maybe. But it disappeared fast. She stepped forward, reaching for a towel on the chair beside her. The seminar ended early. I was going to head back in the morning, but Daniel, he's been going through a tough time. I stayed to support him. I looked at Daniel, who just nodded as if this made perfect sense. We were just talking, she said, smoothing her hair back. He's having a bit of a breakdown. Work pressure. Family stuff. She spoke so convincingly with such casual confidence that for a moment I started to doubt myself. Had I misread this? But no. No, there was something in the way her hands trembled slightly. In the way Daniel looked at her like they weren't just colleagues. I didn't mean to intrude, I said. You didn't, she replied. I wasn't expecting you. That's all. I stood there for another few seconds, heart pounding so loud it felt like it echoed in the room. I wanted her to say something else. To offer a better explanation. To break down crying and confess anything that would make me feel like I hadn't lost my grip on reality. But she didn't. So I nodded, stepped back into the hall, and let the door close behind me. The ride home from Beckersfield felt like it lasted a lifetime. I didn't play any music. Didn't make any phone calls. I just drove in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Her voice echoed in my head, every word, every calm explanation. The way she smiled when she saw me. Like nothing was wrong. Like I was just a misunderstanding she could charm her way out of. Back at home, the lights were off. The house was quiet. I walked in, set the vinyl record on the kitchen counter, and placed the bracelet box right beside it. I didn't have the heart to throw them away, but I couldn't look at them either. I stood there for a long time, trying to shake the image of her in that hotel room. What hair? That shirt? The way Daniel had just sat there, so comfortable, so sure of himself. That's when I started remembering. Not big things, just details. Little things I brushed off at the time. Disconnected fragments that never seemed worth piecing together. Until now. 2 months earlier, Kelsey had changed her phone password. It was the first time she'd ever done that. When I asked about it, she laughed and said work had a new security policy. I didn't push. Why would I? Trust wasn't something I'd ever questioned with her. But after Beckersfield, that memory came back with a new weight. Then there were the late-night business dinners. At first, they were maybe once or twice a month. Then weekly. Then more. Always with a client. Always last minute. I remember one night I stayed up for her, made her favorite pasta, thinking I'd surprise her. She didn't get home until nearly midnight. Said the dinner ran long. She smelled like wine and a perfume I hadn't bought her. Just a new sample, she'd said, slipping off her heels. It came with one of those subscription boxes. That explanation sounded reasonable enough back then. But now? It sounded rehearsed. Another time I found a receipt in her jacket pocket. It was from a French bistro uptown, one we'd never been to together. I asked her about it and she told me it had been a business lunch with some investors. Nothing personal. She even made a joke about how she barely touched the food because she was too nervous about pitching a new idea. I had believed her. Every time. Without fail. Because that's who I was. The guy who gave her the benefit of the doubt. The guy who trusted first even when it hurt. And the gym. God, how did I not see it? She started going to the gym on Sundays with a new friend, someone named Lauren. I'd never met her. Never even seen a photo. But Kelsey talked about her constantly. How Lauren was helping her with her lifting form, how they had brunch afterward, how it was good girl time. I had asked once if I could join them for brunch sometime. Just to meet her. Kelsey laughed it off. It's kind of a no boys allowed thing, she'd said, kissing my cheek. You wouldn't survive the conversation. It sounded like something she would say. It sounded like her. But now I wasn't sure who she even was. And then there was us. Our routines used to be sacred. Sunday mornings with coffee on the porch. Friday movie nights with arguments over what to watch. Quiet dinners on Wednesdays where we'd catch up without our phones in hand. Those routines faded. Slowly at first, then all at once. She'd stop waking up early on Sundays. Said she needed the sleep. I'd find myself drinking coffee alone, scrolling through my phone just to fill the silence. Friday nights became her me time. She'd go out for long drives or take herself to the movies. Once she said she wanted to start journaling again and needed solitude. I respected it. Encouraged it even. Because I thought it meant she was taking care of herself. I didn't realize it meant she was taking herself away from me. Our Macy changed too. It was subtle at first. Fewer kisses. Fewer shared glances across the room. Less hand-holding in public. Then it shifted in a stranger way, like she was trying too hard. She'd be distant for days, then suddenly affectionate. Too affectionate. Like she was trying to reset the balance before I could notice it tipping. I did notice. I just didn't know what to call it. It was like trying to hold water in my hands, knowing it was slipping through my fingers but not knowing how to stop it. I started scrolling through old texts that night. Her messages were different now, shorter, more formal. Fewer emojis. Fewer I love yous. She used to send me photos from her day, silly notes, little updates. Lately, it was mostly logistics. What time would I be home? Did I feed the dog? Could I grab milk? I even opened our shared calendar. Looked at all the blocks of time she'd labeled meetings or client calls. It was so organized. Too organized. Like it was built to deflect suspicion. And still, even as I uncovered these cracks in our timeline, I kept wondering if I was just being paranoid. I think that's what hurt the most. How easily I started gaslighting myself. How every red flag came with a counter-argument, a possible explanation, a way to keep believing. Because the alternative was too painful. The alternative was that my wife, the person I'd built my life with, had been slowly checking out. Not because of some sudden rupture, but because of something worse, a pattern. A deliberate shift. One that I had either missed or refused to see. I sat at the kitchen table until dawn, piecing it all together in my head. Trying to map out when things had really started to change. Was it last spring when she took that work retreat to the coast? Or the holiday party where she spent the whole night whispering to Daniel and left early without saying goodbye? Maybe it didn't matter when it started. What mattered was that it had. What mattered was that the person I loved had already started walking away, one small, unnoticed step at a time. And I had stood there, smiling, waving, pretending we were still side by side. A week after the hotel. That's how long I let it go. I told myself I was giving her space, that maybe she'd come home and explain things better. That maybe, just maybe, I'd imagined the worst. But she never brought it up. Not once. When Kelsey walked back through the front door that Sunday night, it was like nothing had happened. She dropped her bag by the stairs, kissed me on the cheek, and said she was starving. We ordered Thai, watched a rerun of a show we used to love, and she even laughed at one of my stupid jokes. It felt surreal. Like we were both playing parts in a show neither of us had rehearsed for. And maybe we were. Because by then, I wasn't looking at her the same way. I was watching her. Listening more carefully. Measuring the pauses in her answers, the way she avoided specifics. I started catching lies that were so casual they felt practiced. She said she was tired from travel, but there were no signs she'd been on the road. Her bag looked barely used. Her phone was suddenly always face down even when she wasn't near it. She used to leave it everywhere, kitchen, bathroom, in the bedsheets. Now it was glued to her side. The weirdest part? I started mimicking her. Smiling when I didn't feel like it. Saying I love you even when the words felt like rusted metal in my throat. I thought I was holding on to our marriage, but I was really just clinging to the version of her that existed before Beckersfield. Before that hotel door cracked open and the light poured through the lie. Then came the Thursday I came home early. It wasn't planned. My last meeting got canceled and for once I didn't text her to say I'd be back. I figured I'd surprise her. Cook something decent. Maybe talk. Maybe catch her off guard enough to see something real. Her car was in the driveway when I pulled in. The porch light was off, but the living room window glowed faintly. I let myself in quietly like I didn't want to wake the lie. The house was too quiet. No TV. No music. Just the low hum of the fridge and the faint creak of floorboards upstairs. I set my keys on the counter, toed off my shoes, and took the stairs slowly. Half of me hoping I'd find her asleep, headphones in, unaware of the storm coming. Her home office door was cracked open. Not wide. Just enough to show me the shape of what I wasn't supposed to see. Kelsey was on the couch, curled under a throw blanket, a half-full glass of wine on the table beside her. She looked peaceful, comfortable, the way you look when you're exactly where you want to be. And Daniel was sitting next to her, not across from her, next to her. His arm was draped over the back of the couch. His fingers, slow and absent-minded, were stroking her hair like they'd done it 100 times before. There were 2 plates on the table, half-eaten pasta and some salad. A candle flickered between them, nearly burned down to the base. It wasn't a business dinner. It wasn't support. It was them. She didn't see me at first. Neither did he. I don't even remember breathing. I stood there, one hand on the doorframe, my entire body gone numb. Then she shifted slightly, her gaze moving lazily toward the hallway, and froze. Our eyes locked. For a second, she didn't move, didn't say anything. Her body went still, like a deer about to bolt. Then she sat up, brushed her hair back, and did something I'll never forget. She smiled. Not wide, not happy, but familiar. The kind of smile you give when you've already prepared your excuse and just need someone to give you a chance to say it. Jason, she said, calm as ever. You're home early. I didn't answer. Daniel turned then, his hand retracting slowly, like he was trying to appear respectful after the fact. His expression was harder to read. Not exactly guilt, not even surprise, just calculation. I didn't know you had a meeting canceled, Kelsey continued, pulling the blanket tighter around her like she needed the comfort. I would've. I didn't wait for her to finish. I just turned around and walked out, down the stairs, past the living room, through the front door and into the fading twilight. The air was cool, crisp. I didn't know where I was going, but my body kept moving until I found myself in the parking lot of a grocery store 15 minutes away. I sat there for hours, just staring at the streetlights, letting the hum of the fluorescent bulbs buzz through me. The scene replayed in my head like a movie I couldn't stop. Her eyes, his fingers in her hair, the wine, the way she didn't scramble to explain or even look scared, like she'd been waiting for this moment to come, like the performance was over. I thought about calling someone, my brother maybe, or my old roommate who'd been through something similar years ago. But I didn't want advice. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted silence, a space where nothing had to be said, because the truth was nothing needed to be said. I had seen everything I needed to see. There was no yelling, no confrontation, no broken dishes or slammed doors, just a slow collapse, a quiet death of whatever belief I still held in the version of her I loved. Eventually, I drove back. The lights were off by then. Her car still in the driveway. I didn't check if Daniel was still there. Didn't care. I just walked inside, went straight to the guest room, and closed the door behind me. I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, thinking not just about what she'd done, but how carefully it had all been constructed, how long it must have taken, how intentional it all seemed now, and how stupid I'd been to miss it. That was the moment the illusion died. Not just the illusion of fidelity, but the illusion that love by itself could fix anything. Love doesn't keep people loyal. Love doesn't stop lies. Love doesn't mean anything when one person stops showing up. And Kelsey had stopped showing up a long time ago. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Until now. After that night, nothing was ever the same. I didn't say anything. Not that night, not the next morning. I didn't bring it up. Didn't confront her. Couldn't. I wasn't ready, not because I didn't want the truth, but because I already had it. It was sitting in my chest like a stone, heavy and unmoving. Kelsey acted like everything was normal. She made coffee the next morning, humming softly like she hadn't been caught in the middle of something in asterisk mate and unforgivable. She wore one of my old sweatshirts, kissed my cheek as she passed by in the hallway, and asked what I wanted for dinner later. Dinner. As if we were just another couple going through another week. As if my silence wasn't screaming. I responded with one-word answers, nods, polite indifference. I didn't trust myself to speak, afraid of what might come out if I let the dam break. There was a kind of power in the quiet, something terrifying but also grounding. I was observing now, not participating. And I needed to be sure. That's when I started digging. I remembered she'd once backed up her phone to a cloud account that auto-synced between her laptop and mine. She probably forgot about it, or assumed I wouldn't know how to access it. But I did, and what I found there burned through every last shred of denial I had left. Old messages, deleted photos, voice notes. There was one file in particular, just a simple audio clip. I almost didn't listen, but curiosity is a brutal thing. It was her voice, laughing. God, I wish I could just be done with this, she said, casual light. But the timing's not right. He's not ready yet. Give it a little longer. She was talking to someone. I couldn't tell who, but it didn't matter. That one sentence told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't just cheating. She was strategizing. I went cold, completely numb. My hands stopped trembling. My heart stopped racing. I was done feeling confused. Now I was just angry, controlled, quiet anger. The kind that doesn't explode, it sharpens. I began collecting evidence like I was building a case. Receipts, emails, location history, calendar entries, *TS of text backups, restaurant reservations she never mentioned, a hotel invoice from a weekend she told me she was at a work retreat. It was like following breadcrumbs through a forest I didn't know we were lost in. I even found old emails to Daniel, hidden under a different folder she'd renamed something innocuous. Budget planning. In them, she talked about weekends, whispered longings, and playing it cool until they figured out their next steps. There were no confessions, no apologies, just coordination. It became painfully clear this wasn't a one-time thing. This was a slow, methodical betrayal, layered lies spun with care, and I had been living in it like it was air. She came home late one night, a Friday, with that same perfume on her skin, the expensive one I never saw on our credit card bill. I watched her as she poured a glass of wine, curled up on the couch, and texted with that tiny smirk on her face. I knew who she was texting, and I didn't care. Not in the way I used to. I'd moved past devastation. I was somewhere else now. Colder place. Clearer, maybe. I saw everything for what it was, stripped of the stories I told myself to cope. I stopped sleeping in our bedroom. Said I was working late and needed space. She didn't question it. Maybe she was relieved. We functioned like roommates now. She asked about groceries. I asked about mail. She talked about work. I nodded. But underneath it all was this current, this electric awareness that we were pretending. Every interaction felt staged. Every word she spoke felt like something rehearsed. One night, she asked if I was okay. I said, yeah, just tired. She nodded slowly, like she didn't believe me but also didn't care enough to dig. It was around that time that I stopped fantasizing about fixing anything. That urge to save us? Gone. I didn't want to fix the house when the foundation had been rotting for so long. I just wanted out. I wanted air. But disappearing wasn't about escape anymore. It was about reclaiming choice. I began looking for apartments. Small ones. Something quiet. Far enough away that I could vanish without running into her at the grocery store or hearing her laughter down the street with Daniel. I packed a box each night. Little things she wouldn't notice missing. My favorite books. Clothes. Photos of my parents. Anything that felt like me. I bought a prepaid phone and registered a P.O. box. I rented a storage unit and moved what I couldn't carry in one trip. I told no one. Not yet. Kelsey kept pretending. She kissed me goodbye when she left for client brunches. She told me she loved me when she went to bed. Her lies had become muscle memory. Habit. But I didn't flinch anymore. I didn't even respond. It must have been jarring, my silence. She used to read me so well. Now she didn't even know what page I was on, or that I had closed the book entirely. Then, one night, quietly without announcement, I decided it was time. She left on a Saturday morning for a college reunion in the city. Said she'd be gone the weekend. Hugged me like nothing was off. Smiled that smile I used to trust with my life. As soon as she drove away, I moved. I packed the last box, grabbed my essentials and left my key on the counter, right next to my wedding ring. No note, no message, just that tiny, polished band. Once a promise, now just a punctuation mark. I walked out the front door and didn't look back. By dusk, I was in a different neighborhood. My name wasn't on the mailbox. My lease was in a fake name. My utilities were prepaid. I wasn't hiding. I was reclaiming. Hopeville was the kind of town where no one asked questions. I found a job fixing old electronics, watches, radios, TVs. Quiet work. Honest work. There was something healing in it. The simplicity. The honesty of broken things waiting to be repaired. I didn't feel like I was running. I felt like I was waking up. No more secrets. No more rehearsals. Just the buzz of soldering irons and the hum of an old record player waiting to be brought back to life. Some days, I still hear her voice in my head, laughing, lying, whispering promises into a phone I never saw. But the more time passes, the quieter she gets. And that silence? It feels like peace. It didn't feel dramatic. Leaving, I mean, no music playing in the background. No tearful final glance over my shoulder. I walked out of that house with a single duffel bag, a set of keys I didn't plan to use again, and the kind of clarity you only get when the world you've built has already burned to ash. It wasn't escape. It was freedom. I'd already done the hard part, accepting the truth. Everything after that was logistics. The new apartment in Hopeville was small, barely furnished when I moved in. A futon. A folding table. One lamp with a bulb too dim. But it was mine. And it was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't scream at you, just settles into your bones and reminds you what peace can feel like. Hopeville was a town you could disappear into without questions. The people didn't ask where you came from or why you spoke like a city boy trying to sound local. They were polite but not intrusive. And that suited me just fine. I found work within a week at a repair shop off Main Street. The sign out front was sun-faded and the floors creaked with every step. The owner, Martin, was a man of few words and thick glasses. He needed someone to fix radios, turntables, old gadgets no one remembered how to operate. I told him I could learn fast. He looked me over once and handed me a screwdriver. "You break it, you fix it," he said. That was my interview. By the end of the week, I had my own drawer and a name tag that just read J. It was honest work. Tactile. You took something broken and made it work again. There was no lying to a circuit board. No gaslighting a transistor. Either it worked or it didn't. And when it finally clicked, when sound came back to life through dusty speakers, it felt like magic. I started settling into a rhythm. Mornings were coffee from the diner across the street, where the waitress, Patty, always called me sweetheart and didn't seem to notice I wore the same jacket every day. Afternoons were spent elbow-deep in wires. Evenings I'd walk to the edge of town where the woods got thick and the air smelled like pine and dirt. There was peace in routine. In being alone without needing to explain why. And Kelsey? I didn't hear from her for days. Then a week. Then 2. At first, I kept expecting my phone to buzz. For her name to flash across the screen. For some dramatic text begging me to come home. But nothing came. I guess she was waiting for me to break first. Or maybe she assumed I'd be back eventually, like a dog returning to a house that no longer felt like home. She didn't know me anymore. One day, I got curious and logged into our old shared email. Just to see. There were receipts. Booking confirmations for another weekend in Beckersfield. Restaurant reservations in both their names. She hadn't even paused. Just kept moving. Like she'd waited long enough and now had the green light. Seeing it didn't hurt. Not the way I expected. It just confirmed what I already knew. She had left long before I did. She just didn't bother to tell me. I stopped checking after that. I didn't need more reminders. One afternoon, Martin handed me a beat-up cassette player someone wanted restored. It was a rare model, metal casing, analog dials, the kind of thing collectors would K*LL for. Inside, taped under the battery compartment, was a folded photo. A couple. Smiling. Young. Caught in the sun with squinted eyes and messy hair. The man had his arm around her shoulders like he didn't want to let go. I stared at it for a long time. That used to be us. Not the photo, but the feeling. We used to be that easy. That natural. Before spreadsheets and business trips and lies that sounded too smooth to question. I almost threw the photo away. Then I folded it back up and returned it to its hiding place. Some things should stay with the story they belong to. That night, I dreamed about Kelsey. She wasn't doing anything, just standing at the kitchen counter, peeling an orange. She looked up and smiled like she used to. The kind of smile that made you feel like the only person in the room. I woke up angry. Not because I missed her, but because some part of my brain still hadn't gotten the message. She was gone. Gone and not coming back. The silence started to feel like comfort after that. Days passed without incident. No one asked about my past. Martin gave me a raise without a speech. Patty remembered how I liked my eggs. I started collecting old records from flea markets, slowly rebuilding a collection I once shared with someone I no longer trusted. One evening, I walked home with a bag of groceries and saw a couple across the street. Young. Holding hands. Laughing about something private. For a moment, it gutted me. Not because I envied them, but because I remembered what it felt like to believe in that. To trust that feeling completely. I don't know if I'll ever have that again. But I know I'll never settle for the version of love I used to believe in. The kind that comes with asterisks. The kind that lets you believe half-truths are better than silence. That if you love someone hard enough, they'll never walk away. Sometimes they walk anyway. Sometimes they start walking and never stop even when they're still sleeping next to you. Disappearing didn't make me a coward. It made me free. Free from the noise. From the guessing. From the endless loop of asking myself, what did I miss? Turns out I missed a lot. But I also caught myself just in time. And that was the choice. A week after I disappeared, Kelsey finally reached out. Not with a call. Not with a text. A letter handwritten. Neat cursive on plain stationery. Like she was trying to strip the drama from it all, pretend this was just a civil request, not a plea from a life that had cracked open. It said she wanted to meet. No pressure, she wrote. Just coffee. Just clarity. I don't know why I said yes. Maybe I wanted to see her face one last time. Maybe I wanted to see if she'd flinch when the truth sat between us. We met at a little cafe we used to go to when we first moved in together. It was nearly empty. Rain tapped against the windows, the kind of soft gray day that made everything feel quieter. She walked in 10 minutes late, dressed in her usual polished way. Hair done, blazer crisp, face carefully composed. She looked like someone trying not to fall apart. Jason, she said, like it was still normal to speak my name. I nodded. We talked. Or she did. About confusion, about pressure, about how Daniel had been a mistake born out of distance and stress and everything else that sounded like a script. I didn't interrupt. I didn't argue. When she was done, I reached into my bag and set a folder on the table. Inside, printed emails, time-stamped photos, receipts, cloud-synced messages. All of it. And on top, signed divorce papers. She didn't open the folder. She just stared at it. And I stood up and walked out. She didn't follow. The divorce went through quickly. She didn't contest anything. No calls from lawyers. No requests for renegotiation. Just one quiet agreement followed by the sound of something closing for good. She reached out once more, a message through a mutual friend. Said she wanted to talk. Said she hoped I was okay. By then, I'd already blocked her. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to tell the world what she'd done. I didn't post anything online. I didn't text her long monologues about pain or betrayal. I just left. That was my message. You don't always have to burn the bridge. Sometimes you just walk away from it. Let the silence speak for itself. In the end, I didn't miss her. Not really. I missed the version of her I built in my head. The woman who didn't lie. Who laughed with me in diners and held my hand during thunderstorms. She wasn't a mistake. She was a mirror. A turning point. A quiet ending that led to a louder beginning. Letting go without bitterness, that was the most powerful thing I ever did.